All right, Phil Larmon here, and welcome back to Old Men, New Money. Today, we're stepping into a conversation that honestly should have started years ago because it's been sitting right in front of the sports and entertainment industry this whole time. But nobody wanted to say it out loud. And that conversation is simple. The way sports, entertainment, and media get distributed today is broken. Not outdated in some minor way, not ready for innovation. I mean, fundamentally broken at the foundation. And everybody knows it. Fans feel it, creators feel it, and athletes feel it. Even the executives holding the keys feel it. They're just terrified to admit it. Because once you admit it, and they admit something's broken, people expect you to fix it. We're living in an era where content is infinite. Attention is fractured, loyalty is fragile, and the cost structure of the old media system doesn't make sense anymore. But underneath all that chaos is a simple truth. The problem isn't the content. The problem is the rails, the infrastructure, the economic plumbing underneath everything. The thing nobody sees, but everybody depends on. And that's why this conversation isn't really about blockchain or tokenization on the surface, even though that's where it's heading. This is about what happens when the entire distribution model of an industry doesn't match the behavior of its consumers anymore. And Web3 is the first technology stack that actually fixes the incentives that everyone else has been duct taping over the last 15 years. Let me start with where the break actually happened. For decades, sports entertainment distribution relied on something the industry treated as a law of nature: scarcity. If you wanted to watch your favorite team, you needed cable. And you wanted a specific event, you needed pay-per-view. If you wanted premium content, you needed a subscription. Scarcity kept prices high. Scarcity kept networks powerful. And scarcity made distribution a privilege. But when the internet removed scarcity, literally overnight, and when scarcity disappears, the economics of the old world collapse. Fans suddenly have infinite options. Creators suddenly had direct access to audiences. Athletes suddenly had platforms they didn't need permission to use. And the legacy companies that relied on scarcity to justify billion-dollar contracts woke up one day and realized the entire business model they were built on didn't exist anymore. You can see it everywhere. Cable is collapsing, streaming is losing billions, networks are consolidating because none of them make money on their own, studios are slashing budgets, the average consumer is paying for more content than ever, but enjoying less of it. Athletes are creating more content than ever, but monetizing almost none of it. Creators are the engine of entertainment now, and yet they own nothing. It's all backwards. But the deeper problem is this: fans don't own anything either. You can love a team, you can watch every game, you can buy tickets, you can wear the merch, you can evangelize on social media, but at the end of the day, they walk away with nothing more but memories. No ownership, no equity, no value. And in an economy where everyone has endless entertainment choices, no ownership means no loyalty. That's the part the old system refuses to accept. Let me tell you something I saw firsthand years ago. When I was at iHeartMedia, I came across a company called LiveLike. This was well before crypto had gone mainstream, before NFTs were even a word, before anyone in sports entertainment was thinking about digital ownership. LiveLike was building fan engagement tools, predictions, polls, interactive broadcast features, ways for fans to feel present and influential in the live experience. It was innovative, but it wasn't just a gimmick. It was tapping into a shift that nobody in the traditional media world was taking seriously yet. Fans didn't just want to watch, they wanted to participate. They wanted to shape the experience. They wanted to matter. And even though LiveLike's live broadcast features product was eventually acquired by Cosm 4 or 5 years ago, that acquisition told me something important. The industry saw the shift coming. They recognized the need for interactivity. They just didn't have the technical rails to do anything meaningful with it yet. Because participation without ownership only goes so far. If fans can click buttons, vote in polls, or choose camera angles, that's fun, but it doesn't change their relationship with the ecosystem. Ownership changes behavior. Ownership unlocks loyalty. Ownership creates economic alignment. And Web3 is the first technology stack that makes ownership scalable. Think about how broken the current sports media model is. The entire multi-billion-dollar business of sports broadcasting was built on the cable bundle. You didn't pay for the ESPN because you wanted ESPN. You paid for cable because ESPN was inside the bundle. The bundle subsidized everything. The bundle kept networks flush with cash. The bundle kept leagues happy. The bundle made billion-dollar media deals possible. But young fans don't have cable. They're not going back to cable. They're not watching 3-hour broadcasts with 15 ad breaks. They're on TikTok, YouTube, Reels, Twitch. They want highlights. They want condensed games. They want behind the scenes. They want storytelling. They want relatability. They want authenticity. And none of that fits the old distribution model. So networks are panicking. They're losing their subsidies. They're losing their leverage. They're losing their ability to overpay for media rights. And leagues are panicking because they've built the cost structures on media money that isn't guaranteed anymore. Now, go look at streaming. Netflix changed the consumer expectations. Ad-free, on-demand, bingeable content. However, they have introduced ad-type environments now. But they did it because they needed to. They needed more money, or they actually had the opportunity to make more money because they had what they deemed to be a audience that wouldn't go anywhere. But some did. However, they've replaced it with new additional revenues through those advertising components on the network. Then every network launched its own streaming service, and suddenly consumers needed 5 different subscriptions just to keep up. They were promised convenience, but they got fragmentation and fatigue. Streaming was supposed to be cheaper. Now it's more expensive than cable ever was. And yet every one of these services has the same flaw. Fans still don't own anything. You subscribe, you consume, you cancel. There's no compounding value, no long-term alignment, no upside. It's just a treadmill. And when you treat customers like renters, they behave like renters. They leave the second something better comes along. This is why creators are exploding, because creators give fans something networks can't: access, personality, real connection. But even creators are trapped in Web2 economics. YouTube takes 45%. TikTok takes most of the monetization. Instagram pays almost nothing. Substack is a paywall with comment section. Patreon takes fees for hosting your fans. None of it's ownership. None of it builds equity. Web2 is built on platform dependency. Web3 is built on user ownership. Now let's talk about sports again. Imagine if everything you did as a fan, watching games, buying merch, attending events, engaging with content, supporting creators, earned you tokenized loyalty. Not some fake point system that disappears when the season ends. Actual value tied to the ecosystem you're supporting. Tokens that give you access, influence, perks, decision-making power, even dividends if the model is structured as a security. This isn't hypothetical. These rails exist. The technology works. The only reason you don't have it today is because the leagues and the networks haven't accepted the reality that their old distribution model doesn't match consumer behavior anymore. Now think about Hollywood. Studios are struggling because the economics of streaming don't support blockbuster budgets. Streaming subscriber growth has plateaued. Churn is high. Production costs have skyrocketed. Legacy studios are cutting staff, slashing projects, and praying for a turnaround that isn't coming. Theatrical releases are unpredictable. Streaming returns are weak, and fans, again, own nothing. But here's what's interesting. When a film is tokenized, fans become investors. Investors become promoters. Promoters become evangelists. And suddenly the film isn't fighting for attention. It has an army behind it. That's the difference between marketing and ownership. Marketing tries to capture attention. Ownership creates commitment. This is where Web3 enters as the infrastructure that fixes the incentives at every layer of entertainment. Not because blockchain is cool, but because blockchain introduces something the industry desperately needs: transparent, programmable ownership. Ownership of content. Ownership of access. Ownership of loyalty. Ownership of rights. Ownership of economics. That's power. Imagine you're watching an NBA game and you can mint your favorite moment instantly, not as a speculative collectible, but as a piece of digital property that earns royalties if the league uses it in future highlight packages. Imagine musicians releasing albums where fan owns pieces of the royalties, incentivizing them to push streams. Imagine directors funding films by selling fractions of future revenue to their audience, turning superfans into shareholders. Now that's something that's sustainable. Because once you give people the ability to own a piece of the content they consume, everything about how they show up changes. People fight for what they own. They engage with what they own. They advocate for what they own. They promote what they own. They stay loyal to what they own. That ownership is one thing the old media system never gave fans. Not because they couldn't, but because the business model never required it. But now, the business model is falling apart, and suddenly the thing they avoided for decades is the only thing that can save them. Let's talk about highlights for a second. Highlights are the most consumed sports format in the world. Not full games, not press conferences, highlights. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, moments compressed into pure emotional energy. But right now, highlights are owned by leagues, distributed by networks, monetized by platforms, and fans are just the end users in the chain. But what happens when the fan becomes the distributor, or the owner, or the person who captures that moment and mints it? AI is making content creation instant. In a few years, fans will be generating alternate angle highlights, AI-enhanced breakdowns, personalized reels, and microclips the second they happen. And they're not going to accept these platforms. They're going to own it all, and they'll own it for free. Blockchain gives fans the ability to assign authorship, assign ownership, assign provenance, and even royalties on the content they help create. And once that happens, fans don't just amplify the ecosystem, they become part of the ecosystem, the economic engine. No middleman required, no gatekeeper required. The content creates value, and the people contribute it share on that value. That is absolute future. Now let's talk about decentralized betting. Everyone tiptoes around this subject because sports leagues want to pretend that they're not in bed with gambling companies. But revenue is revenue, and they absolutely are. The problem is the model. Sportsbooks make money by building in margins. Fans lose more than they win because the system is designed that way. But peer-to-peer, blockchain-based prediction markets flip that model. No centralized house, no stacked odds, no opaque payout process, just smart contracts holding funds and paying out automatically when the event ends. It's cleaner, it's fairer, it's more transparent, and it's absolutely inevitable. The only barrier is regulation catching up. And you know what? Younger fans won't wait. They'll migrate to whatever platform gives them the transparency and control. They always do. This is why peer-to-peer betting will explode the secondary regulatory clarity hits. This solves every frustration sports bettors have today. But let's zoom back for a second. All these things, tokenized access, tokenized highlights, tokenized loyalty, revenue sharing models, decentralized markets, sound like separate innovations, but they're not. They're components of a single idea: fans becoming stakeholders instead of spectators. And once fans become stakeholders, everything changes. The leagues benefit, the athletes benefit, the creators benefit. The networks that embrace this shift benefit. Everyone wins, except the middlemen who built empires being the toll collectors of attention. Now let's take this even further. AI and Web3 together create a future where every fan's experience becomes personalized and ownable. Imagine watching an NFL game and the AI automatically edits the broadcast in real time based on what you care about. Fantasy breakdowns, player mic'd up moments, behind the scene clips, schematic explanations, betting analytics, and imagine that broadcast living in your digital wallet as a tokenized asset. That's the future. Not watching whatever ESPN or Fox decides to broadcast. Watching the version of the game built for you, delivered to you, owned by you, and enriched by the ecosystem you support. And this is where things get uncomfortable for traditional media companies, because they know this is coming, and they don't have a business model for it. Cable was a money printer. Streaming was supposed to replace it, but it didn't. And fan ownership threatens their margins because it forces them to share the value they extract. But the leagues don't care about the network's margins. They care about engagement. They care about the global reach. They care about loyalty. They care about monetizing attention directly without an intermediary taking half. And Web3 gives them a direct pipeline to the fan without any of the dependencies they built their business on. Look at the MLS partnering with Apple, NFL working with Amazon. Look at the NBA building its own global streaming product. The leagues are already testing life beyond traditional media. It's happening quietly now, but it won't be quiet for long. Because the first league that fully embraces tokenized media distribution will set the standard for everyone else. And here's the real tell. It won't be the NFL. They're too big, they're too comfortable, too well funded by legacy money. And it won't be the NBA either. They're more innovative, but they're still tied into massive media contracts. It'll be a league that's hungry, a league that needs capital, a league that wants to own the future instead of renting it. MLS could do it. Pickleball could surely do it. A startup basketball league could do it. A combat sports organization could do it. Hell, women's sports could explode using this model because their fan bases are passionate but underserved. It's always the league with the most to gain and the least to lose that takes the first step. And once it happens once, every league will follow. Because the economics are better, the loyalty is stronger, the data is richer, the engagement is deeper, and the fans aren't going backwards once they get a taste of the ownership. This is the pattern we're seeing for decades. When the internet made distribution free, creators exploded. When social platforms opened direct communications, brands lost control. When streaming broke the cable model, consumers never looked back. Every distribution that aligns value closer to end users becomes permanent. Tokenized media distribution is the next inevitability. Not because it's trendy, because it fixes the incentive problems that have been draining the industry for over 15 years. Content doesn't need change. Distribution does. Ownership doesn't need to be complicated. It needs to be accessible. Fans don't need to be manipulated. They need to be included. The leagues don't need more middlemen. They need better rails. And Web3 isn't the hype. It is the rails. So here's what's coming. Fans will own part of their teams, not in the fantasy way teams pretend, but in the real, regulated, exchangeable equity. Fans will own portions of highlights they mint. Fans will earn loyalty tokens for their engagement and trade them for real value. Athletes will own their media rights. Creators will own their distribution. And leagues will finally have a direct, programmable, global pipeline to their audiences. The media companies that embrace this will ultimately survive. The ones that don't will be footnotes. This isn't about crypto. It's not about infrastructure. It's not about the plumbing. It's about the invisible layer that dictates who wins and who loses for the next 50 years. We are rewriting economics of attention. We are rewriting the economics of sports. We are rewriting the economics of entertainment as a whole. And the people who understand this will own the next decade. This is Old Men, New Money, and I'm Phil Larmon. And this next episode, we're going to walk through what happens when athletes, creators, leagues, and fans all operate on the same rails. They're not competing. They're not negotiating from opposite sides of the table. They're actually aligned. And that's where real value gets unlocked. And that's where we're heading. I'll talk to you soon.